Greetings, guitar players. I'm David DeLoach, and you're tuned into my video, which is a companion to my book, The Fretboard, Volume 1, Scales, Modes, and Arpeggios. Now, this video is not a substitute for the book, but what I'll do on this video is I'm going to guide you through the book, explain the concepts, give you examples. I'm also going to throw in some tips and techniques that probably are not in the book, that more on how to play technique style. But I wanted to give you, first off, who am I? I started off playing guitar as a bluegrass guitar player. Didn't know how to spell a scale or a chord. I didn't know what a treble clef was. And I grew up right down the road from Denton, Texas, where North Texas State is, and I just wound up going to school there, getting to study guitar with Jack Peterson. I got to study jazz theory with Dan Hurley and Rich Madison, and I was also able to study classical guitar with Mike Harris there, as well as a lot of other great instructors that I learned a lot from. And I learned probably equally as much from all the other students that I got to jam with all the time. And most of what I've learned in this book, I can attribute to Jack Peterson. Took a one-year master class from him, a year of improvisation, and some other courses as well. I learned a lot from Dan Hurley and the other guys as well, Rich Madison, Mike Harris. Basically, so this video is going to be rather lengthy, and this table of contents right here will kind of guide you through where you can go in the video that corresponds to different sections of the book. So if you want to go to one section or another, you can jump around. This book can be used in two ways. One, as a really comprehensive course where we go from beginning to end and assimilate a vast amount of knowledge about the guitar fretboard. Or you can keep it on the shelf and pull it out when you want a new idea. Let's say you're working on a song that has a dominant seventh chord in it, and you just would like to have some fresh ideas about what you could play over that dominant seventh chord. Well, this book's going to give you a lot of ideas in that area, to give you options. I kind of equate it to when I was a young child. My dad was a soldier. We'd go out to eat like once a month, and we'd go to this little restaurant in this little town, and I'd get a hamburger, and the only thing I wanted on it was salt and ketchup, and that was it. But as I got older, my taste buds matured, and I found out that pickles and onions and tomatoes and all that other stuff, it makes it taste better. And learning this theory is somewhat similar to that. When I started, I was playing basically a pentatonic scale or a major scale, and that's all I wanted. But as I explored more of these arpeggios and different types of scales, symmetric scales, melodic minor, harmonic minor, and the modes, and all the arpeggios nested in there, I found some things that I liked that I otherwise would never have used if I hadn't tried it. And so as you go through all this content, there may be some scales, some arpeggios where it just doesn't hit your taste. That's okay. Sometimes you'll find something doesn't taste good, and then a year or two later something will click and you'll find the perfect spot for it. Sometimes it's just a little tweak in timing makes something that you thought sounded bad sound really cool. So you can study guitar for 100 years and never exhaust it. And the more I've learned, the more I realize how much I don't know. And so that's kind of cool. One thing I can guarantee is if you really study this book, I don't think you'll ever be in a rut again, ever. It opens doors to possibilities above and beyond this book, and we'll get into it towards the end there, where you can take it after you've mastered all this material. But back to who am I? Played bluegrass, went to school. There's a few years where if I was awake, I was playing. I was either in school, I was practicing. I practiced 6 or 8 hours, 7 days a week. I was gigging 5 or 6 nights a week. And did that for a few years. Then I got married, started having kids. I got a day job to put food on the table. And basically for about 8 years I didn't play. And then when I picked it back up, I guess it's 1990. I didn't play much from 82 to 90. And in 1990, when I picked it up, I had a limited amount of time to play. Had a really demanding day job, had a big family. So what do I do? And I thought, what would be the most efficient use of my time for my practicing? And so I went back to this fingerboard mapping system that I'd learned from Jack Peterson. And I thought, if I could do this for an hour on most days, this is going to be the most efficient thing I can do to simultaneously work on my chops, work on my ears, work on my mind in understanding the guitar. I do want to emphasize that while the study of scales, modes, and arpeggios is important, it's just a tool. It's just an exercise. If you watch a football team play, those football players have spent time in the weight room lifting weights to become strong to make them better football players. But in a football game, they don't bring weights out on the field and pump weights. They're just playing football. And this is kind of like doing these scales and arpeggios. It's kind of like being in the weight room for guitar playing. And you work on these exercises and you build up your mind. But when you go out and play, you're not playing scales, you're not thinking arpeggios, you're thinking music. You know, it's more important to play from here, from the heart, than it is from the head. I tend to practice this stuff using my head, but when I play, I try to turn my head off and just play what's in my heart and play what comes easy. And the stuff that's in this book, it might seem complicated, it might seem difficult at first, but the more you practice it, it migrates into the easy zone. It becomes easy, it becomes second nature. And that's the type of stuff I pull out to use when I'm actually performing. I heard Kirk Whalen, who's Whitney Houston's sax player for many years, say that you want to have a lot of headroom when you're playing. You don't want to be pushing your limits. You want to be staying in that zone where you're comfortable, where the cake's ready to come out of the oven. Don't bring it out too soon. Okay, guys, this video, there's a lot in here. There's a lot of talking, especially through the theory part. And it may not be a cliffhanger. It may not be the most exciting video you've ever seen. But I tell you what I've done is I've condensed so much information into this book and in this video telling you how to use the book. This is literally 1 or 2 years worth of a university level guitar program. I went through North Texas back in the late 70s, early 80s, studying with Jack Peterson, and took a long time to assimilate all this knowledge. So what I'm delivering here on this video, it may seem like a lot, and the book may seem like a lot, very condensed. And again, if you're planning on going to study guitar in a university, this is going to give you such a head start. If you're currently studying guitar in a university, this is going to really help you out. If you wished you could have gone, you never made it, this is going to give you a lot of what you would have found out in a good jazz school about navigating the fretboard and about the theory behind it. So if it seems like a lot, it's because it is. So don't get bogged down if you can't master all this stuff in 1 day or 1 week or 1 month. Come back to it, go use it in alongside the book, and try and make it part of your daily workout. You know, again, don't get overwhelmed. It'd be okay to focus on this stuff for a season, for a month, for 3 months, for 6 months. But again, as a musician, your primary focus should be learning the songs. This is going to help you. This is the lifting weight. It's going to make you a stronger musician. But it's a lot. So don't get frustrated. Persevere. And by the time you get to the end of this book, you're going to know a whole lot more than you did at the front end. Okay, again, this may seem like a lot of material to cover in this book, but no one thing in this book is difficult. It's just a lot of very simple things. And if you just work on one at a time, you're going to get it. If the way I approach memorization is if I have to, let's say I'm going to memorize 12 ways to play a major scale, I'll learn the first pattern first. I'll get it memorized. Once I have that down, then I'll memorize the second, and then I'll work on those two until I can play those two from memory. Then I'll add the third, and I'll work on those 3 until I can play those 3. And then I'll add the 4th, play those 4, and so forth and so on until I get to the 12th. And that process works well for me, whether it's memorizing finger patterns or memorizing how to spell scales, modes, or arpeggios. Just start with 1 and just add 1 and stay there until you have that, and then add another and stay there until you have that, and move on. And fortunately, the more you memorize, the easier it gets to memorize, the more efficient the memorization process becomes. Okay, one thing that's critical to remember is time is going to pass whether you're working on your guitar playing or not. At some point, it's going to be 5 years in the future from today. And that time is going to pass no matter what you're doing to invest in that time. So even if something might take months or years to develop, why not think strategically about the future and where you want to be at some future point and work towards it? Again, the last 31 years, I've worked at a day job, I've had a big family. I haven't had all the time that I would like to have had to practice every day. So I had to think strategically about what I was going to work on and for how long. One year I just decided if I'm watching TV with my family, I'm going to hold a solid body guitar, muted so it makes no noise, and I'm going to wiggle my finger back and forth while I'm watching TV and work on vibrato. And you know what? That year came and went. At the end of the year, my vibrato was vastly improved. So I tend to think of things of goals like that. And with this book, you can certainly apply that same principle. Okay, so again, if I covered everything that's in this book, every fingering pattern in every key, this video would probably be 20 or 30 hours long, going at a slow teaching pace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on every topic in the book and give you demonstrations and hit on examples to show you how to do this, where you'll be able to then go on your own and play anything that's in this book. And I think by the end of this video, you're going to have an understanding of how to map out the fretboard where it just becomes alive to you and gives you infinite options, as well as being motivated to tackle this, because it's actually kind of fun. You know, if you think something's going to be hard, it tends to be hard. If you think, I think it's going to be easy, it tends to be easy. And when I was 11 years old and I discovered I could do this, I thought, wow, I could play lead guitar if someone just showed me where to put my fingers. And I got excited about that. And you know, this is the same thing. If you just see someone else do it, you're going to say, you know what, I could do that. I just need to figure it out. You can do this, and it's going to elevate your playing. And now, don't worry, you're still going to be able to play Johnny Be Good or Louie Louie. It's not going to, knowing theory is not going to rob you of your ability to play. Again, that's why it's important to play from the heart and not the mind when you're performing. But you take this theory and you first ingest into your head, and then you play it and you practice it enough that it just becomes second nature, and it becomes an outlet of your musical DNA, of your emotion, of your feeling when you're playing. And that's where it gets really fun. So let's start out and start taking a look at this.